So welcome to this is the September meeting of full council, which is around October. We'll start with 22-23 111 Chair's remarks. Obviously, since the last full council meeting, there has been a major national event, namely the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. When something of this magnitude occurs, there are procedural steps that we as a council have to take, one of which concerns the legal notice period we have to give for our meetings. As the national period of mourning did not count as a working day, we had to reschedule a series of council meetings, of which this is the last one. There were also a series of public events that had to proceed in specific order. The proclamation of accession to King Charles was initially limited to Sunday the 11th of September and had to happen in London prior to a cascade down levels of local government, which we are the last. The amount of notice meant we did not have time to arrange for this. Fortunately, with the announcement of the national moment of reflection, we were given another opportunity to proclaim the Ascension. So on the eve of the late Queen's funeral at 8 p.m. in the Market Square, the moment of reflection and proclamation of the session event was held and attended by 80 to 100 people. I was away on holiday throughout this whole period, so I would like to thank the staff for their work in keeping the public informed of events, arranging the moment of reflection, and rearranging council meetings. Councillor Curdo for attending the commemoration service on Sunday the 11th at All Saints Church on behalf of the council. Councillors Carney, Clough, Curdo and Mia and Nicola, the Deputy Clerk, for their attendance at the moment of reflection. A special thanks go to Councillor Dawson for doing a superb job of leading the moment of reflection and reading the proclamation of the session, which I've been told by numerous people who were there. For the majority of us, this is the first time we've known a change of monarch. The crowds at the lying state and the funeral are testament to the high regard the British people have for Queen Elizabeth II. So, as this is the first full council meeting since Her Majesty's death, I invite you all now to join me in 1 minute's silence as a mark of respect for Her late Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II. Thank you. So we're moving on to the next item of the agenda, 22, 23, 113. Apologies for absence. To note, apologies for absence, which we've got from Councillor Carney, Councillor Dawson and Councillor True. Individual together. Proposed by Councillor Good, seconded by Councillor Good. All in favour? Thank you. 22, 23, 114, disclosure of interest to receive declarations of interest from councils for items on the agenda. Are there any? Received written requests for dispensations for disclosure of pecuniary interest? No, none of those. Right. 22-23-115 minutes of the previous meeting. Does anybody have any corrections to the minutes of the previous meeting? No? Someone to propose? Councillor Heselton? Councillor Cooper? All in favour?
Abstention.
Abstention.
Abstention. One abstention. Councillor absent. 22-23-116. Confidential items to be discussed in confidence at the item 22-23-133. Does anybody have any items they think should be moved to 10 minutes? No? Okay. 22-23-117, public participation. Members of the public are invited to the opportunity to speak to the meeting on any topic relevant to the work of the council. You've said you don't want to speak. You're still sure? Yeah. Thank you. Okay. 22-23-118, ongoing item to receive updates on the ongoing issues and brief further actions where necessary. Thing we call, I don't know if anyone's got any update in the absence of Councillor Carney. I'm not aware of anything. I'm not aware of anything.
Chair, the only thing I suppose that we can notice that it's been suggested that the outcome of the levelling up bid may be known, people are saying towards the end of October, but certainly the end of this year I think something's likely to happen. But of course that can change because it's beyond any of us our control.
Thank you, Councillor. The changing places toilet facility.
Well, it's there. I hope everyone's seen it. A big silver time machine landed. I've got a video of the hauling it in on YouTube. There's a few photographs went on the council's website, and it was in the TNA as well. It just so happens the photographer that I met when I first dug the hole, well, when the hole was first dug, I actually didn't do it myself. The TNA photographer was there. He happened to pitch up on the day that the hub was craned in for another secret reason. He was there taking pictures of the pool, but couldn't say why. So that was interesting, related to the subject we just talked about. But the hub is along with now connecting it and paving it, and the only annoying thing from my point of view is there seem to be very poor communication. I got a phone call the other day from the electrician who was on site wanting to know where the where his switching board in the toilet was to be fed from. Well, that sort of gainsays the 2 hours I spent down there with, you were there, weren't you? One of you was there, had the roof off, and you were going up on the step ladders looking at all the ceiling panels down about a month ago and taking photographs of the rack ones up above the ceiling. This guy just was completely unaware of that, so I referred him to Healthmatic and he basically put the phone down. So yeah, a little bit frustrated that the comms within Healthmatic is very poor, seemingly. But go live date is November the 4th. I haven't heard an update that it won't be November the 4th. Philip and I were talking about what sort of launch we should have, and my view was a soft launch on whenever it's open, and then we'll formally open it with ribbon cutting at a later stage. I'm actually on holiday on November the 5th for 4 weeks, so please don't have it while I'm away, is what I said. But I think booking it now for November the 4th would be not the right decision. And that's the update.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I know that we've been unfortunate with, first of all, I think leave of contractors in August, wasn't it? And then there was, we've been unfortunate with leave of contractors, with those foundations being found for something.
Oh yeah.
And then the timing of the Queen and passing.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say thank you for keeping on top of it, Steve. I think you've done a really good job.
It's there.
Just wanted to give.
You're just buttering me up before you're
No, it's
I see where you're going with that. Thank you. Any, that's it. Anyone looked inside?
Yeah, I have.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Any of the other councillors looked inside?
No.
Looks very small. When I saw it, it was empty of the bits that would move around, like the table and the screen and things like that, but the toilet was in situ. The wash hand basin wasn't, the shower wasn't. So, but the wall panelling and ceiling all looks as per spec.
It looks massive inside without those other.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Everyone's seen it.
3 metres by 4 metres is a standard size, and it is quite a big space. Because, you know, from a carer's point of view, there could be 4 of them in there. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know we were, the deputy clerk said half an hour there yesterday or the day before when we were putting the paving outside. We need to see how they finish that, I think. Have they? Good, because it was just a draft.
No, we have a spec that's going to override on that. Yeah.
No, it's fine. Should be good when it's finished, we should have to see, because I would echo Stephen's comments that communication of what's happening with it is a bit hidden distance forever. Any more questions on the single toilet? Okay, moving on to C then.
This was
Climate
the
emergency.
climate emergency thing. Just, I thought there were 2 or 3 small steps we could take as a council that would address minor issues that are our contribution to changing things. And one of them is peat restoration. I've written in the paper the significance of peat. There's a bit about government policy, which is to stop peat being used for horticultural purposes from 2024. A simple suggestion that we write to Yorkshire Water, who I understand, thanks to help from my good friend, Councillor Jeff Winard, that the landholder is Yorkshire Water. There are a number of tenants, but the landholder is Yorkshire Water. Just a simple letter to ask them what they're doing about peat restoration. Well, my good friend, Councillor Steve, suggests that it can't be restored, not in this 1,000 years, but that it could be preserved from further damage. And he's proposed an amendment to that, and I'd be happy to go along with that amendment.
Everywhere it says restore, right, preserve and protect. Because we haven't got another 3.5 billion years to wait.
That's just what I was going to ask them.
Yeah. And Dale, what's it got to do with climate emergency? I don't understand the link between climate emergency, if there is such a thing. I don't believe there is, as previously stated, and peat. Preservation of the peat.
Well, I've written here in the notes, Chair, that peat actually stores. The UK stores more carbon than all the forests of Europe, France, Germany, United Kingdom and so on. So
by releasing it, you stick carbon dioxide into the air.
So by damaging peat, it releases carbon dioxide. There's also an issue for Yorkshire Water will be about the 2 reservoirs up there. When you drain peat, it degrades. But actually it has the capacity to store up to 20 times its own weight in water. So it actually slows down in heavy rain the rate at which water comes off the moor.
Yeah.
I'm proposing
What do you
I
mean?
propose that we write to the Yorkshire Water as a...
Councillor Good, he's proposing it.
I'm proposing it, seconded by John.
I apologise, I'll second. I just want to move it on, because we talked about it for I'd like to second the motion.
All in favour?
As amended.
As amended.
Thank you very much.
Robert, are you against?
Well, I haven't heard enough to make a judgment.
Okay.
Can I ask that on the subtitles, can we have audible scoff to the reaction of Steve saying, if there is such a thing, to coin an emergency?
By some councillors.
I don't know that we have subtitles. So, moving on then, 22-23-119 finance, to receive the schedule of payments for September. Howard.
Yes, I have a question, Chair. Am I right in what it says when it reads, claim part 22-23 events, or are we paying in advance for next year? So it says 22-23.
No, we're not paying in advance, that'll be
22, 22.
as in, we're in the financial year 22 to 23.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I misunderstood it. I'll climb back in the old.
Any further questions on the schedule of payments?
What's our position with VAT as an organ of local government?
We claim it back.
Right.
It is.
It's very good.
We need to vote on that.
Do we have a proposer?
Have to close.
Proposed by Councillor Drewville, second Councillor Whelan, all in favour?
Sorry.
David, is your hand?
Yeah, I've made it,
Yeah.
yeah. Going to track down the next document.
Okay, so B, to receive the bank reconciliations for August 2022. Anybody got any questions on bank recs?
So proposed.
Proposed by Councillor Clough. Seconded by Councillor Drewville, all in favour? Yeah. And C, to agree to buy £1,500 from the allotments reserve in the budget to the general reserve to cover the recent cost of health and safety allotment work it was.
Proposed. Second.
Is this a, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is this a recommendation of the Finance and General Purpose Committee?
It hasn't been.
It hasn't been before them. I think that the timing was such that it hasn't been there, but the work was a health and safety
Okay.
emergency that needed to be done. So it was agreed by us, the chair and the clerk.
And any change, any amendments to the budget have to be read at full council anyway, so it would have to come here.
Yes, fair enough, but if it's a recommendation, that's a
Can I just explain to Dale what the situation was?
Sure.
There was some work being done on the site and a health and safety hazard was identified, and we thought, we went to ask the clerk if we could use emergency funds for emergency work while the contractors were on site to get the job done. He's done the job, it's an excellent job, it's a hell of a lot of money, but that's by the by. Okay?
great.
So can I have a proposal to borrow the funds? I'll propose it.
Yeah, I'll second that.
All in favour? Okay, policies, amendments 22, 23, 120. To approve the following policies. A, councillor induction and access policy.
Chair, could I just make a suggestion? I think the policy's fine. I just wonder whether the reference to other documentation on the second page, got the code of conduct and the Nolan principles. I really wonder whether they should be highlighted more and almost have a separate paragraph to them. Just because I think that it's clear that if people haven't been on the councils before, they can't always necessarily understand the constraints and the sort of things which we have to, how we have to constrain ourselves to. And I just wonder whether a separate paragraph on those, because I think it's very important that councils do understand those particular matters.
I know it's not a motion, but I'd like to second that. I think that's a really good suggestion.
So do people want that to come back, or are they happy that that just gets?
I mean, personally, I'd be happy if there was just some suitable amendment to bring those two documents into a separate thing, and just in a way to highlight them, because they're different from the standing orders and
The code of conduct is adopted separately anyway, though, isn't it? And the Norman principles are...
Yeah, but obviously the connection, because the code of conduct refers to the Nolan principles.
Yeah.
I just think it's useful, but I think that the councillors are aware of those sort of things going forward.
Just some ways that we can highlight just
Yes.
from
Paragraph.
from your
Yeah.
councillors.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, with that amendment, I think we're happy to accept this document. Proposed by councillor, seconded by councillor Taylor, all in favour? Are you not in favour, Mr. Williams?
Sorry, yes.
Okay. So, the dispensation policy, is there any other comments on the dispensation policy? I'll propose. Councillor Good, seconds, all in favour? Second, C, the document retention policy, anybody got any comments on the document retention policy?
Yes, I think it's just, I was reading through it all and it's interesting how long we have to keep some of these documents.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Years and years and years.
There was one question I wanted to ask, Chair, and that is, have we disposed of it? Because we've been in business 6.5 years.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know the
That's
answer.
the what, sorry?
We've been in business for 6.5 years. I would say where it says 6 years, certainly in terms of financial information, whatever, it's always 6 years after the end of the financial year to which it refers. So anything that's 6 years in there, we should be looking to get rid of come after April next year. But there are some in there that say 3 years and so on.
Yeah.
Have we ever disposed
Not that I'm aware of, we've
No,
done
no,
disposal of anything.
just asking, because it says, I don't know whether we're supposed to get rid of them, or is that an option whether to get rid of them?
We should.
Some say
Recommend.
6 years, and then, you know, gives you the option sort of thing. Yeah.
I think that's probably something we should add to the clerk's work schedule as being something to pick up on and ensure that we do these strokes. We're not meant to keep information for longer than
Yeah, that's what I'm
human
that's what I'm
necessary,
thinking.
certainly personal information. That's okay.
Yeah, obviously there is information to get shut of, and it looks like we are going to start having to do that. Do we have something in place for secure disposal?
Well, we've got a shredder. Yeah.
But if it's lots of documents,
2 shillings.
You can order those bags, the confidential waste bags, they cost a lot of money though.
I don't think we've got that much.
Okay. just a question.
Yeah, we've got that.
We probably should do an exercise and put stuff to one side that should be
The assessment of it all.
and then see what the volume
I don't
is.
know how you
We need
find
to put
it.
something in place.
I don't know how you find it either, you know, what is gone over 6 years, you know, we don't file it in date order, do we?
I mean, it could be personnel records, for example, staff who left, where presumably we would still have those in an identifiable place.
I think for anything like financial records, they will be in date order, but for other things in the files in the public.
Good.
It's an exercise that we'll have to
Just a thought.
I wish I hadn't said that.
Well, the employee personal files is 6 years anyway. So,
We're proposing that, and somebody proposed it.
Are you proposing?
Absolutely. Move on.
Councillor Mayor, seconded, all in favour of the document retention policy? Thank you. So the procedure for the co-option of candidates. I have a couple of suggestions on this one, just for things that have come up in the past year where we've asked questions of YLCA that aren't necessarily reflected in the documents. I think they need to go in. So we've had discussions around what happens if we only have a single candidate that comes forward for co-option. We still have to have a meeting, we still interview them, and we still vote on them. So I think that needs to go in. And there is the advice we've had that you know, if an eligible candidate comes forward and they are the only candidate, then we take them, we cannot vote against them. So I think that needs to be reflected in the policy. But with those amendments, I would propose it.
I'll
Second
second.
it by Councillor. All in favour? Thank you. Moving on then to 22-23, 121, Finance and General Purposes Committee. I'll pass over a separate item in its own right. So the grip bins, there's the recommendation that 2 councillors will assess the proposed site for any new grip bins on their own merits based on the Bradford Council checklist, because they won't do those assessments for us going forward, and they will provide recommendations to the F&G committee. Is everybody okay with that? Councillor Williams.
I've got my old chestnut that if the council take on jobs, they should staff up accordingly. And that this again is asking for volunteer councillors to go and assess grip bins. Why can't the staff do that? No special skill involved.
Well, some of the criteria required to make decisions that some of the staff aren't comfortable with. I think the current F&GB councillors are content to do this.
Yeah. Let them get on with it.
And at the moment, for this coming year, we've got 3 requests for new grip bins, so I don't think that's an onerous task at this point. I would also comment that the spreadsheet for people checking grip bins seems to have quite a few gaps in it, so those councillors in areas that haven't been around their wards, can you please do so? Do we need to vote on it?
Yeah.
I propose.
I'll second it.
All in favour? Against? You abstaining?
I'm abstaining.
Okay, and C, community gift card. Before I hand over to us, the view of the F&GP was that as a subset of the council, they weren't in a position to make a recommendation, didn't feel it was appropriate to make a recommendation, and that full council should make a decision on whether we go forward with this as an idea. Lewis has done lots of hard work and we keep coming up with reasons not to do it, so to save his time and enthusiasm, we need to make a decision as to whether we think this is something that should go forward or not.
Okay, so to sanitise a common phrase, this is definitely game will get off the pot time. I don't want to keep on bringing this back. On an unrelated note, remember the compliment I paid you, Steve, and the brown cow's a lovely pot. So, having gone back to members of the public, community gift card is still quite popular. The news with Shipley that we had just before the meeting last time, well, not last time it was discussed, I've learned the metric by which they judged whether it was a go or a no-go. And that's they've sent out a blanket of 30 emails and had 2 responses, one of which was positive, one of which wasn't. So, in my mind, did significantly less work than I did by setting a Facebook poll and far smaller number of responses. So, that means that we rely on Baildon. And this motion is conditional on Baildon proceeding. Baildon have made enthusiastic noises about it, but to be very honest, it seems like both councils are being cautious about taking the lead on it. Well, this council is cautious about doing it, but there is a nervousness about taking a leadership role, it seems. The benefit of taking a leadership role would be that you would have first option on the design of the cards. So if Baildon were to be the senior partner, they would be able to call it Baildon and Bingley gift card instead of Bingley and Baildon gift card, for example. They can make it look pretty and have pictures of Baildon on it, and we would we'd negotiate with it, but they would have slightly more say than we would. So that's the motivation to be the senior partner. Going back over all of the sort of meetings, all of the questions that have been asked about this have been dealt with in the latest iteration of the business case, relating to MasterCard, relating to popularity. To me, it's a no-brainer, to make it less data-driven. You can come over more from Ilkley, which incidentally has also got a gift card. You can stop off in Eldwick, get some flowers from Michelle, pay on the gift card. You can go down into Bingley, you can get some food. You can fridge it, you can get coffee maybe. If it's a Saturday, you can go to Busy Bees on the market. You can get your significant other or yourself a lovely dress. There's a few other places as well that we could go to. We could go to the Secret Garden and have a pint. Maybe the Brown Cow. I haven't had a response from them, but maybe the Brown Cow. So you see, these are real people. These are local residents. So I can anticipate that there may be a concern about we should be doing something to help residents. This is helping residents. A lot of residents, a lot of business owners are residents. By having a community gift card, we're looking to increase the footfall in the town. It's not going to make it anything radical, but it would be a nudge in the right direction. Something that would make me even more puzzled about certain opposition to it is the cost of living crisis is making things very difficult for businesses. So to borrow from a supermarket, every little helps. I know that Councillor Heseltine, you've been affected by the cost of living crisis in the station masters, which I understand that you were involved with at some point, and they have closed and gone on hiatus. So they've made it very clear that that's one of the reasons why. So if we are able to provide this, then that'd be a really good thing. To me, it's us showing as a council that we're considering our community, we're considering our business community, and we're doing the best for Bingley. I know that at FNGP there was a comment that I think has got some merit actually, that there is a perception, one that I don't agree with, that we like spending on ourselves as a council. That's a perception that's out there, and some influential people have got that perception. I don't think that's true. This is an opportunity to disprove that. In terms of the figures, it's not £3,000 anymore, because half of 9,950 is £4,975. So it is a slightly larger ask. It's still negligibly larger than the subscriptions that we would pay on an annual basis. And if it isn't working after 3 years, then it isn't working after 3 years, and try something. Something that may be slightly uncomfortable to talk about, something slightly uncomfortable to listen to maybe. And I hope that I'm wrong here. But I'd like you to consider that if I go outside and say that it's raining, it's not my fault that it's raining. And I'm going purely on my perception here. So there is a certain cohort of people that tend to vote against this or speak against this. And to me, the town council is not a place for party politics. It isn't why I'm involved in this, just because it's Joe Wheatley's project. I think it's a good project. On my election form, my byline was doing the best for Bingley. That's what I've been trying to do. And I certainly hope it's not that, because I like Jeff, I think Jeff's above that. But a lot of the negativity seems to come from one certain cohort. So I really hope that I'm wrong in that, and I hope that people are going to vote for or against this based on the merits of the argument, not on some sort of line whipping or loyalty that's misplaced, that ultimately harms the residents of Bingley. On that point, it just so happens that the sort of originator, if you like, of the gift card was a Conservative councillor. If we do want to play those games, I know that I don't, but there you go, that's just for full context. I appreciate that not everyone would have liked me saying that, but I feel that it needed to be said. If we are to go ahead with this, we will need to form a group with Belden, of which I'll be more than happy to be a part of. I'm more than happy to sort of hear any sort of objection, reticence, and I'd like to deal with them in their own merits. The nature of the motion, to reiterate, would be conditional on Belden coming in with us. I'm not suggesting that we foot the full bill for this, because I don't think that we've got the appetite for it, very honestly. So the motion that I'll be suggesting is that we proceed with the community gift card. We proceed with setting up a cross-town council working group, and we progress to a project initiation meeting. I can see that there are some people that are wanting to ask questions of me or maybe tell me off, so I'm going to shut up and let you.
Yeah, well, let me first say from the get-go that I'm actually in favour of it, which may well surprise Lewis, certainly. But I have some concerns about process and procedures. You were out on Facebook asking for some support last week. Can you say something about what responses you've got, if any, because you haven't mentioned that in your preamble?
No, I didn't. And it wasn't as popular as the 126 votes. Most of the comments were on my council page with local businesses tagging each other and expressing enthusiasm in that way. I've had people talk to me sort of in the street, face to face, about being behind it as an idea. There are other places that I've talked about that are going away and they're consulting with their owners. So an example of that would be Shelters Treats. I've mentioned it to them. They've said provisionally it's a very good idea, but we need to go away and talk about it. So there's a lot of sort of ones that I could mention, but I didn't think it was right to, because they haven't been as forthright as the ones that I've mentioned and the ones on my Facebook. If you want, I can list the ones that have responded, but I don't know how valuable that would be.
You're doing more on public consultation than Shipley, and while we're on YouTube, I think Shipley should be introduced to the gunning principles of public consultation, sending out 30 emails and getting 2 back and then deciding on it. Just seems to be a ridiculous thing to do. However, that's for them, not for us. My other question was that you're on your YouTube channel,
yes,
as well, saying that you were going to have a simple business case, but then you were going to make the business case so complex that we couldn't say no. So I wondered whether this business case in front of us is that readjusted business case, or is this the same business case that we had?
So it's adjusted. It isn't. I didn't because of events that some councillors are aware of. Life overtook me, so I wasn't able to take that belligerence and run with it and make the 45-page document before we need to
I was looking
submit.
forward to it.
I wasn't looking forward to writing it. So what I simply did was I reviewed all of the meetings and had all of the questions that I felt that I hadn't already dealt with and added them in and added a little bit more context. So that I think Councillor Dawson asked a question about implementation, so I added a table that essentially said here's what would be required from various people at various points. The gist of it is that there's effort for us to set up, and then it's sort of like a bike going downhill. Once you're at the top of the hill, kind of is self-sustaining, and then when we reach the bottom of the hill, we'd have a meeting and see, is this working? We'll look at the metrics and go from there.
And the last comment is related to the motion itself. I think it's very woolly and it needs tightening up.
Okay.
And I think it should say, subject to the active participation of another council. We wouldn't name Bowden, it could be Shipley could come back in, it doesn't really matter who it is, but another council. And subject to the business case being reviewed, because Bowden need to accept the contract terms that we impose on them, and those discussions need to be had. So this business case is a draft, but we're not agreeing the business case, we're agreeing a motion to go forward with it, which I think is fine, but it needs to have that codicil written into it, and I'll be happy to propose such wording that, you know, maybe a better wordsmith than me can put the wording to it, but essentially that's where I'm coming from.
For me, we're either agreeing to progress with this, but not necessarily to do it.
Not going to contract.
Yeah.
Progressing
Or
to business.
we're agreeing, we're stopping work.
If we're agreeing to progress to a business case, subject to later approval, then that's fine. But we're not agreeing to go forward because Bowden's not on board yet. They haven't agreed to contract terms.
Yeah, it's conditional on that, but I accept that we shouldn't be naming sort of councils necessarily in that sense, but the sentiment I get. I agree.
Can I ask what's the evidence that it will increase football in England?
The fact that there has been an uptick in, so I think that they've had over 120 uses of this across the UK. They've since expanded into Canada, they've since expanded into America. They've been able to do that because more money has been spent in the town. It's a logical extrapolation that you would expect that would likely be an increase in football, because it's not going to be the same. Let's simplify. It's not going to be the same 100 people necessarily. The point would be I would give my wife 100 quid if she didn't go into Bingley more than once a month. Maybe she'll go in 3 times a month. It's not a case of necessarily they've sat at the entrance of a town with a clicker like a door and counting them in. It's just a logical extension, what you would sort of logically expect.
But there must be some statistics from the use of the card.
There's an increase in expenditure in the town. There's an expectation that 70%, well, 170% of the value of the gift card is what is on average spent by people who have got preloaded gift cards. So not only are you getting people that may not necessarily ordinarily have gone into the town, but they're spending more, and they're spending more than that allotment of money, if you like. I appreciate that I might not be quite answering the point that you're wanting me to.
It's one of those things you can't measure. I would surmise it's the same discussion we had on the changing places toilet. What value is the purple pound coming to Bingley? You won't know. You can't measure it. You can't measure footfall because we put flowers in the streets. You know, made the town more welcoming. You can't measure it. It's very difficult to measure.
Yeah, to me, it's just a logical extension as to what this does.
I think on the business case, you've got risk GC1, where you say Bingley does not recuperate the investment. Well, Bingley Town Council will never recuperate the investment.
Yes.
It's a spend on our behalf, same as providing a public service. Bingley would hopefully increase its spend and yield into private businesses, because that's what we're trying to drive money into.
Yeah, that's fair.
Councillor
Clearly, anything which supports business and makes a difference, of course, I would be very supportive of. As a background, I feel slightly undecided. What do you think? Who's the market for these gift cards? What I'm struggling to get into my head is who's going to be buying these gift cards, assuming that scheme. And are these not the same people who'd be spending money in Bingley anyway? And, is it new people we're talking about? That's what I struggle with. And I suppose the other issue is, of course, we may also be, if Baildon come in to such a project, be actually also encouraging some of potential Bingley shoppers to go and shop in Baildon shops as well. And I suppose the point I made at the previous discussion about this is that most of because it only relates to the independent traders, which I understand why that would be the case. Of course, most of the shops which have the biggest footfall in Bingley are not the independent traders. And indeed, some people who are buying these cards, if we would have such a scheme, would need to understand that the whole swathe of places which wouldn't be able to accept the card in any case. So, those are the sort of issues which are still, making me think. I think at best, the impact would probably be marginal. I don't think that one way or the other it would make a great difference whether we do it or we don't. And of course, hopefully some of the independent traders in Bingley would think it was worthwhile their while joining, because why wouldn't they, as long as it wasn't too much effort for them to do. So that's where I am, but I'm not quite sure where I am, frankly.
Yeah, okay, so who's it aimed at? So, anyone and everyone is a very short answer. So yes, it will be, so I go into Bingley a lot. I'm fully, if this happened, I'm fully expecting my wife to find it hilarious to give me a 50 quid gift card, but maybe I would have spent anyway. Equally, what I was more than happily do was I'd get my mum a gift card. I would get my mother-in-law a gift card because she's in Belgium, so that's problem. I don't see the cross-pollination issue as an issue. I don't see that as a bad thing, that Bingley would help grow Belgium, Belgium would help grow Bingley. I personally don't see that as an issue. We do have some shops that are similar, but they're also different ones. So I personally don't see that.
So just to come back on that, so you think it's the sort of thing people would buy at Christmas or birthdays and give to people? Is that the sort of thing we're talking about here?
Generally, yeah, or sort of, well, you could have it as sort of a corporate thing. It's the sort of thing that, so I work at Airedale, that kind of stuff is sort of the thing you get as a leaving present or stuff like that. So it's like it's an event to, I suppose, answer you more directly. Yeah, your last point about drinks, you're absolutely right, and we did discuss this last time, and I think we understand each other, but just viewed through slightly different ends of the prism, maybe. Yes, that Lidl has higher footfall than Buswoods. Of course it does. But therefore, Lidl doesn't need help in attracting more people.
I agree with that. I'm just saying it just weakens the appeal of the card. I think if it's only a few places you can use it, I suppose that was the point.
To me, I don't think it weakens it. I think that strengthens it. And I think that, well, the company involved, and you've got the unredacted business case, so I'm not naming them. Their job as the supplier, they've done it very successfully indeed, 120 times as I said, and their job is to market it. Their job is to make sure that is a strength. So I don't quite view that in the same way.
Who decides who is a national company? Because Councillor Willard just there said Aldi and Lidl and Lily Co-op, but Wetherspoons is a national company, but the Market Tavern isn't. It's got 5 pubs. The Brown Cow isn't. Chippenham isn't. Brewery Fair, not sure. Potting Shed, not sure who's behind that. I mean, maybe Councillor Heseltine knows more. But you know, if you can't go in Spoons because it's a national chain, then there's plenty of other drinking establishments that you can go in.
Yeah.
You know, it's not. But the supermarkets, they're all going to be national chains, aren't they? But would someone go and spend a gift card in a supermarket? Probably not. You know, it's not a gift, is it? You know, no. Unless it's designed to gift.
That probably comes to one of my reservations, which is, well, this might talk about this a lot, but I struggle with where the extra money comes from. So people might now send someone a gift card, but in the past they would send them £20 in an envelope or via online banking. So I don't see that there's necessarily extra money there. And as given the current climate and the current financial situation lots of people find themselves in, I think there may be people in our area where if they were given an extra 20 or 30 pounds would want to spend it and take it and eke it out as far as possible, which means they would want to go to the supermarket. They may want to spend that on food for their family. They're not going to go, with the best will in the world, they're not going to go into Hedgehog Organics and spend twice as much for a potato. You know, I'm not sure that the time is right for this, given what's out there.
Yeah, thank you. On the pros and cons, and you've listed a number of companies. One of them, it refers to, you know, sort of basically any business can be in it. However, you know, as a negative in my connects, it didn't mention that the type of business that can or can't be in it. You've got 9,500 businesses. Are they all one-man, two-man band shops, or are some of those what I would call, even if they are local chains, a chain of shops? or a franchise chain of shops. That is already there, and just picking up on what Councillor Gibbons said there, yeah, if somebody gets 50 quid and it's unlimited appeal to where they can go, some of that 50 quid could get wasted when maybe, you know, they want to put it towards another essential that they can get in Boots or Home Bargains or what have you. So I'm not convinced that by me giving a mate 50 quid via this card, rather than me giving a mate 50 quid, by giving him 50 quid in his hand, it's going to make any difference to the spending in Bingley, because if you've got 50 quid, you'll spend 50 quid, particularly at the moment. And if it's 50 quid in cash, they can nip down and put £50 on the gas prepay, whereas most of with this you can't.
To remind everyone, just because this card exists doesn't mean that we can't gift people cash. If people aren't going to use it, then don't gift them a card. It's very, very simple. I don't. I find. Do you know what? I've lost my thread. Sorry.
If you get a gift card for £50, the person only wants to spend £20 in a said shop.
Yeah.
How would they get the £30 back?
They would spend it in another shop. So you can go and spend £20 on organics because they're one of the interested parties, and then you could go and spend 25 in shop, and then 25 in budget, and then a fiver somewhere else, maybe in Belgium. I remember the point that I lost my thread on, by the way, if I may come back to that. I completely understand your points about it's restricted in that the money goes to only a certain number of shops. But we are a town council, and our priority ought to be the overall health of the town. So if we have a £100 gift card versus £100 cash, that £100 cash, if 80 of it goes to the co-op, 15 of it goes to Lidl, and a fiver goes to Wetherspoons, how much of that is coming back into our local economy? It's not the same as if that £100 were to be spread across independent traders. The other point I lost my thread on was the nature of one-man band versus local chains. That's a dividing line that the Connects draw, and it's one that I believe that we can help them draw. So we don't necessarily need to say, Pottinger, you've got presence in Beverley, so therefore you can't be involved in this. We don't need to do that. But there's a question of extent. Lidl and Aldi are multinational corporations, so they're out. Co-op is out because they're national. Wetherspoons is out because they're national. But yeah, there's an element of flexibility there.
I'm just thinking, you know, picking up on that, it seems to be becoming more and more restrictive for people to spend the money. And what about all the unspent money? Does that come back to Bingley Town Council, or is that kept by my Connects? Because I can remember as a kid, folk used to get your 10 shilling gift cards, or if you were lucky, a £1 gift card, and you had 6 months to spend them, and then you lost them. And the amount of times you'd find 2 or 3 in a drawer because they want from a shop you wanted, or you've forgotten where they were. Nowhere in here does it say what happens to the unspent fund, or is it credited back to the person who bought the card?
The supplier, keep the money. I personally don't necessarily have a problem with that. I'm surprised that some elements of the council would have a problem with businesses making money, but there we go. I do think that, yeah, I'm as guilty of it as you were describing, that I'd get a gift card and then not spend it. But given the times we're in now, I think that's less likely.
Yeah, for me, I think I like the idea. My only reservation is it's quite a high price, and I would worry it would like not take off. But for me, I just envisage it as a sort of a gift card to be spent in Bingley. I can't see how there would be any sort of confusion with a £20 gift card and £20. For example, I would never give my friends as a birthday present a £20 note. I would buy them something, or I'd give them a gift card or a voucher. So in that case, this would be a nice thing rather than them spending it on, I mean, they might need to spend it on essentials, but I'd like them to spend it on, say, a couple of cocktails at a pub or something with their partner. So I would see it as a way of guaranteeing a gift amount of money would be spent in Bingley. Because if you needed to borrow money from somebody, or somebody to give you money, they would just give you money. You wouldn't have to get mixed up with a gift card.
Briefly on the sum, I appreciate that £4,975 sounds like not a small amount, but based on the figures that's on our website about our budget at the start of this financial year, that's 1.78% of the total budgeted expenditure for 22-23, or 3.48% of reserves carried forward into this financial year. Just to give it context.
Can I just, thank you. Louis, I've read that and you've spent a lot of time. I'm keen to obviously support that. The only, like reservation, I've just got clarification. It's just like, obviously, at this present time, obviously, in terms of cost of living and this and that, but you giving someone like £20 gift card, they've got that £20 regardless of it. But I think that gift card needs to do a bit more, I think either the independent shop holders or anything like that, they need to do something like how Coop do, give something back, like if there's 10% off, something like that, something extra with that gift card. Otherwise, it's not really, beneficial, is it, in that sense? I know the only beneficial is people are going to shop locally, that's the thing. And secondly, I was going to ask you, how far have you got with the Bingley Chambers of Commerce? Are they fully on board with this?
So,
that's my...
Sorry, no, it's fine. I'm doing that thing again where I directly go. Sorry, Chair. So you raised 2 points. The first point, I think it's a good idea, but they're a business, and then they want to. I imagine they don't want to compromise their profits, so therefore that's why they haven't. It's a model that has worked all over the UK and is starting to in North America. So I agree with you that it would be nice, it'd be lovely, but it's, I'd also imagine that it's a very technically arduous thing to do, because if you walk in with a gift card, that would then mean that the shop owners would then have to go into their till, sort of cost items accordingly, and it would create a massive overhead in work for them as well, because they would need to create different price codes potentially just for people who walk in with this gift card. And what if it does flop? What if it does flop? That's a lot of work that they've done for what? So that's what I say to that. And just remind me what you said.
How on board are the Bingley Chambers of Commerce with this?
So the Chamber of Trade.
Chamber of Trade.
Yeah. So I can understand the flip-flopping on in the mind of some councils. So in July, I was very forthright. I was saying no, they support us, and they do. We've got an email supporting us. What would be nicer than an email supporting us is saying that we would contribute X pounds towards this. That would be appreciated more than words. One of the senior members of the Chamber of Trade is also a stallholder, and she is in favour of it, but that is as an individual, not Chamber of Trade. But yeah, they have said they're in favour of it. If after the 3-year period it's a rip-roaring success, then it's not beyond the realms of comprehension that development chambers of trade both here and in any other council say, oh, we'll take it off your hands and take the credit. But at the minute, we've got platitudes, not pounds, from them, unfortunately.
And that is both chambers of trade.
As far as I understand it, I've got close knowledge of Bingley, but I can't comment quite so confidently on Bell.
Yeah, as a member of the Chamber of Trade, I was at the first meeting where it was introduced. There were some members in favour, there were some members ambivalent, and there was some that said, well, I've got my own gift card, why should we have another one? There wasn't a ringing endorsement, which one would have thought, if the business folk there had thought it was going to be good for them, they might have rallied round and helped Lewis try to push it. The other aspect to it is, you know, if we were supporting local businesses, and it's a significant amount of money, one of the local new firms did some vouchers, which we gave out at one of the Change of Trade events. So you could pick local shops, and it named local shops, you know, bloggers, hairdressers, whoever, £50, £20, whatever. You physically gave people the voucher, so it would go get spent in that shop, rather than a gift card, which might be spent here, might be spent in Bailey. There is another way around that, you know, we could look at sort of like a Christmas lucky dip, so folk can add to the Christmas pile if we want to do some voucherising ourselves.
Given one of the objections to this is the overhead of effort from councillors and staff, I think that your proposition, although it sounds like a nice idea, that would require immeasurably more effort to administer. The Chamber of Trade comment, I think you and I just see this completely differently. If we have an email from the chair of the Chamber of Trade saying we support this, then the Chamber supports this. It's the same as, I'd be the same as the Town Council. If the motion is passed 7 to 5, the council thinks 7.
Can't think that we did have a vote in the Chamber of Trade unless there's been a subsequent meeting.
The chair has expressed that.
I'm sorry, but we didn't have a vote in the Chamber of Trade.
I was giving an example. I was giving an example fairly obvious there.
So the leader of the Chamber of Trade has said they're supportive, but they're not supportive enough to.
Yeah, they've given us encouraging words. They've been supportive in that sense.
Councillor Johnson.
I would suggest that since we've been talking about this for 20 minutes,
Absolutely.
we either vote or we...
45.
That was my question, Chair.
I think we've hashed it out as much as we can do, and we've got a full agenda. And I need to go online. So.
With Steve's amendment then, dependent on another council's involvement, I propose that we progress the board's gift card. Any typing of comments
to full business case.
To full business case.
I'll second that.
All in favour? Against?
Oh.
So, all in favour again, sorry, just to make sure. Okay, then that's passed then.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to D, speed indicator devices, and the recommendation that 2 solar powered seats are purchased.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think this initiative has been going on pre-COVID, I think, so it's been a while, and I think for various reasons, I think COVID was one of the reasons, and now we're getting somewhere. I think we can see the light after the tunnel as well. Myself and Councillor John Hood, we went to the training in Keighley where Councillor Williams showed us how the deployment of the SID gets on. It's not a really complicated process. I think John probably can vouch for it, and it's fairly easy to install. And what we've done is, like, since then we've got a revised quotation, because obviously the quotation that we got 2 years ago, obviously things have changed, and what we are looking at now, rather than buying 3 SIDs, because there's traffic calming measure on Wagon Lane and Beckfoot area, we were going to propose to put a SID there. So therefore, we probably won't need 3 now. We're looking at purchasing 2 SIDs, and the SIDs we're proposing to buy are the ones with the solar panel. The benefits of the solar panel is like it's going to be less maintenance as well, and less taking it down and things like that. So it goes on for longer, the battery, and that's one of the initiative. And in terms of the costing, I think it was probably already sent to you, the quotation by Untitled Limited. What it is now, the quotation to purchase 2 SIDs with the solar panel comes to £7,195.94. And I would recommend that initially we should have the installation done by Bradford Council to the beginning, so that cost another £180 each, so that'd be about £360. So total amount now is going to be £7,555.94. The saving that we will be making, the saving that we'll be making is like that 3,600 annual maintenance. That would be the saving that we wouldn't need to do. And our budget was approved. Was 10, I think it was 10,000, is that right, Eve?
10,000, is it 10,500?
That's correct, 10,500, you know what I mean. And,
can I raise a point of order, please, Chair?
yeah, go on.
No, unless you've been promoted, I was asking Philippa. So, our internal auditor recommended a business case for all things new and significant spend. Right, so we have a business case here for the gift card, which was spending £4,700 a year, whereas this case is looking to spend over £7,000 as something completely new. There's no risk and resource document presented.
We've already accepted ones when
That's been approved. So it's been approved in terms of road safety and councillors stepping into carriageways and the issues of what time of day they're doing it, traffic calming. The business case should have picked up the movement of these things. We were going to move them every 3 weeks, so that's £180 every 3 weeks as we move them. Or we're now proposing that they're static, never move them. So, the whole premise of SIDS was laid out a couple of years ago, but it's kind of meandering and it's now nothing like what we said. So I think we need a business case. And just where I'm coming from, we seem to be going off at a tangent on the verbal presentation from a councillor with no figures written down anywhere, with a thing that says recommendation that 2 solar powered SIDs be purchased.
Well, you do have a quote in front of you in
That's
the pack.
I get that, but it's not a business case. There's no justification. There's no business improvement of the streets. There's no justification of where we're going to put them vis-a-vis somewhere else.
Yeah, this has been going on some time, and not for lack of trying from our division, but the ones further down the road in Keighley actually, but Bradford Council. There was an appetite for SIDS originally. Bradford Council changed the goalposts a little bit. It was regarding community safety. There are a number of roads where the public have expressed concern, and this was a way for us to help try and address that and gather data so that we can then go back to Bradford Council and say there is an issue on this road, it needs looking at. I get why we're maybe doing 2, because the 1,000 scheme outside Beckfoot School is due for implementation shortly. But there were other sites that we had discussed, Cottoncliff Road being one of them, Hop Road, I'll stick my hand by live on it, Park Road. And I think at the time, my recollection was these had built at a spot for 6 months or more and then moved. So it wasn't 2 or 3 weeks, it was a significant length of time. If by not having to go play with the battery every couple of weeks for an increase on the cost of the sign, to me, because we had actually built in a revenue stream for the maintenance and data collection. Data collection should be pretty simple. It was the maintenance of the battery and changing them, that was one of the major issues. As Councillor Mayor has said, you know, it may be that we get Bradford to shift them every 6 months at 180 quid.
Can I raise a point of order on my point of order?
No. Let's finish.
Well, you're out of order, Chair, I'm sorry. The standing orders require you to rule on a point of order. And I've raised a point of order which is said that under our internal auditor should be requiring a business case. So I think it's under standing orders, you have to say whether I'm right or wrong. And if, you know, and then we move on to other cases.
I think you're wrong because we've had the risk and resource form for it on at least one occasion in the past, and we've passed that to move forward with this.
So you think I'm wrong that we don't need a business case?
Because we've had the risk and approved the risk and resource form.
Okay.
It's not a new project, is it?
Isn't it?
It's been going on for years.
We've talked about it for years, nobody's actually done it yet. There's huge risks associated with it.
Right. I went to the training day. Learned a lot from the training day. I also followed this up. Now, I was told at the training day that Willesden had 2 SIDs and they were both had solar panels. So I went to the trouble of contacting Willesden Town Council, the clerk firstly, on data collection. The only problem is that they found is that they need an Android device, and if they have an Android device they can download the, whatever that means, I don't know, whatever that means, they can download the data, and there's several different types of data that you can glean from that information. The other thing was that they had solar panels. So then I was directed to a councillor who is in charge, responsible for doing the SIDs and the solar panels. I asked if there were any problems. He said they hadn't had any problems, apart from initially they were put too low down, and he had just advised me if you kept them high up, they work very well. And the other thing was, this alleviates the changing the battery, which it isn't straightforward, but you won't even really need a spare battery then. So I can't see a lot of problem. What I was going to say was, interesting what Councillor Heseltine just said about numbers, is I was surprised at how low the cost was in relation to what our original budget for 3 was £12,500 if I remember rightly. This is, so in actual fact I'm going to suggest or ask if it'd be worth, although the recommendation is for 2, which I think I proposed, is that we could afford 3, you know, if we wanted to. So it was passed unanimously FNGP on the grounds that it was going to be road safety and good for business. Yeah.
And I think, coming back to what you were going to say, Bradford's offer for install.
What it is, what I said, I don't think Councillor Williams obviously didn't realise. I think, you know, I mean, in terms of this business case was already passed, you know, I mean, and the risk and resources.
Well, maybe you can send it to me on email.
We can send it. I'm sure the, you know, I mean, clerk could send that to you. You know, there's no problem. I think, obviously, as John has said, this is a saving, you know, now compared to how much we were going to initially spend on it. So
maintenance.
Yeah, maintenance wise. And initially, the thing is, like, afterwards, it's not the Bradford Council. We can move it ourselves if we wanted to move it as well. And what John said was regarding the Android phone and the laptop, the information that we get from the machine, the SIDs, we can pilot, how fast traffic is coming, that kind of information. We can liaise with the highways as well for them to get that kind of important information. So I think it's an excellent scheme, and Bingley, really, in terms of road safety, would benefit as well. So, yeah.
I must have missed something, because on that last item, as far as I'm concerned, it's costing us 10,000 quid as this gift card, as well as the town council. So if we're spending that on that, which I, as you know, voted against it, and we're only going to spend 7.5 on this, I think, as John said, yeah, why don't we get 3? But who is going to, and the other point is how we're going to, you mentioned about downloading it onto a laptop. Who has the responsibility?
Goes over that.
Mobile phone.
Yeah, but where's the responsibility going to lie? Is that presumably going to lie with the clerk or the deputy clerk, or?
Yeah.
Where does the responsibility lie in collecting?
This is my issue, Chair.
Eh?
This is my issue. If it comes on an Android phone, how then does it get manipulated and data transcribed, and who's got the laptop, who's responsible for it? It's a
We
job.
may collect the data. I don't, personally, I wouldn't see us having the capacity or capability to analyse it. We would collect it and pass it back to Bradford, because they have highways engineers who do these things. We wouldn't know what the hell we were looking at.
And we can do it. Are they going to charge us for that? Where's the business case? I'll say again.
That information, obviously, that comes up, we can just pass it on to them. There's, obviously, there isn't any kind of cost to it.
Chair, can I ask a question? Where are they going to be looking?
Initially, when we did the proposal, we were looking one up near the school on Cottingley Mall Road. Second one was going to go up the Bedford side, where Wagon Lane and Bedford, and the third one was I think somewhere in Bingley was it?
Somewhere down.
That's right, yeah.
What that one's going?
Yeah.
What that one?
So can we put this in the meeting?
What the bottom?
Yeah, I think so, because we just go around the houses.
Yeah, I think we're going around.
So before we do, given what you've heard, do you want to change anything before we put into the meeting?
Only change that was that what Councillor Good mentioned, that if everybody's happy, in terms of the savings that we've got, instead of having 2 units, do we need to have 3?
We're only an idea.
No, I'm just saying, that's the thing. Or otherwise we go with the 2.
How much would 3 be?
Is it budget?
It'd be 7,555 plus the how much would there be? Another 3,597.97.
So 7,000.
I think by the time you've got the installation, and you'll be on.
Plus 3,597.
For 2.
All right.
Put 2 to start with, no, we
7,555.
11,000.
So
All right, there you are.
11,152.
Go for 2 then.
I'll second a motion that has 2 in.
Yeah.
We can look at the third.
And we can consider.
You get VAT back though.
That's right, we'd get VAT back. That's about another £600 we're going to get back for each of the units.
Oh, that's skilled then. That price for VAT?
Yes, that price is VAT.
That's why I'm confused, because I reckon it was about 3,000 something.
Yeah, so we'd get about £600. I think it's about £600 each unit VAT back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's about 1,200 for
What do
two.
you want to propose?
Do you want to?
Oh,
I support 3.
Which 3 then?
I'd support 3. Can't say anyone else.
3 within the
I'd
budget.
go for
Please brought this to the meeting.
Yeah.
Well, could you propose it?
Yeah, I propose that we recommend 3 sinks with solar panel, including the initial installation charge for 3 of the units from Bradford House.
I'll second that, actually.
Yeah.
And I'll go with it.
All in favour? Against?
Do we need to specify, Chair, where we're going to put these, or?
That's, I think we can decide.
I think
We can decide that later.
Yeah. We can bring that back to the.
Yeah.
So moving on then to in Green and Clean Forums, recommendations to reinstate the Green and Clean Forums.
Sorry, my ignorance, but what is a green and clean forum? I'm sure I picked up that it was anything to do with that.
Well, it's to do with getting the groups together that do that and having a speaker and bring John. Green and Clean Forums.
Pardon?
Green and Clean
All right,
Forums.
yes, right, okay.
Can you tell me what they are?
Yes, I can indeed. Green and Clean, what they are? Put the teeth back in, John. Green and Clean Forums were held prior to COVID. In fact, just as COVID started, we were just going to have our one, which were not, I don't think it was climate emergency, but it was Richard Dawson was going to give a presentation on insulation and that sort of thing. What it is mainly the groups that are on the planting list, if you like, all the community groups in Bingley that are on that list, which is about 12 or 13, are invited to a Green and Clean Forum where we do updating on what individual groups, quite a bit of networking, usually a presentation on a particular subject. We've had recycling, we've had a chat from environmental thing, forests and all that business, but he would have got a waste of space because he never got back to me and he said he would. But various speakers. I have been asked by somebody when if we're going to do them again, so I proposed that, and I understand from the deputy clerk, she looks up, that it was on her, what's that word?
My job description.
Job description. So it's been agreed that I liaise with the deputy clerk and we try and reform these things. You're on a Saturday morning, we've always had them at Cardigan House. I'm proposing, due to my commitments, possibly the second or the fourth Saturday in the month.
But how many a year are we talking about?
Well, I said initially, let's think about 2, but I mean, if we had one and then we, going forward, if we found we were successful, we'll see what the attendance is, etc., etc. So it usually sort of 10 till 12 on a Saturday morning.
So that's John's proposal to reinstate Green and Clean Forums on that basis. I'm assuming you're proposing?
Seconded.
Yeah.
All in favour?
I don't think it's really beneficial, and you get a lot of views and you get all the different people together. And I think it's good for this.
You've got it, John, you've voted for it?
Yeah.
You think we'll get Debbie on the case as well?
That's all right. Yeah, fine, good. Yeah.
So then F, the internal auditor recommendation to approve account and the internal auditor going forward.
I'll propose that.
Second.
Yeah.
All in favour?
Sorry,
All in favour? Internal auditor?
it's all enough, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, then we'll move on to 22-23, 122, the allotments. Recommendations, again, this is FGP, so the recommendation for the admin officer to liaise with the audit company so we can get almost an annual agreement from allotmenteers to do a bit of swimming on their own bit of cash and on empty blocks. Any questions on A? Yes, Councillor.
Sorry, Chair. I'm assuming that this voluntary work is strimming the pathways because the boundaries of the plots abut one another, and the external boundaries abut the walls and the perimeter, so that the only bit in there which isn't the plot holders are the paths to the plots. So is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
The paths?
No, because it's the paths and they do sometimes strew vacant plots.
Okay, well that's, okay. But, you know, this has been going on for years, so why has this come up? You know, why now?
Because it's to do with insurance. Somebody, I think it was, when our site rep brought it up as
It was brought to our attention as to whether they were or weren't covered by our insurance policy, which is why we had the volunteer policy that came through council last month. And this just makes it simpler and easier for them, because if you're out stripping your half of the path, and you turn around and you're stripping someone else's half of the path, otherwise, you know. So some of it is practicalities to ensure that they are.
Look forward to seeing what the insurance company's saying.
I've done some homework since F&GP and I'm feverishly trying to find the exact source now. But the National Association of Allotment People, their take on it is that if you own an allotment, if there's any path bordering it, you are responsible for half of that path.
If you own it or if you're a lot holder.
no, just responsible for maintenance, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's
But it
the
extends the
sort of
half.
policy. That's the understanding we have. That's the best way to put it.
Can I propose this?
Yes.
Second.
All in favour? Okay, then B is the recommendation that boundary markers are placed in the wooded area between the town and the allotment fence to mark ownership of the land. And that councillors Wood and Williams undertake this work. They have volunteered to do this work.
I volunteered after I told you, and I've confirmed it tonight, and Councillor Williams and I will do that.
Put those boots on and go out there.
Can I propose this and I've got the stakes for them?
Yeah.
Yep. I'll second. All in favour? Thank you. Then there's a recommendation not to have a living security hedge at the boundary of plots 1A and 1B. This is to try and stop people entering the allotments, but it would be on an allotment holder's plot. There was a suggestion that we might provide the plants, but then if we provide them, we're responsible. I think if the plot holder want to plant something, that's up to them, was the conclusion we came to. So, do I have a proposal?
Excuse me.
Sorry.
It's a living security hedge.
It would be something like a hawthorn or something prickly.
It's not got human inside. But some sort of eyes.
We might have eventually. Proposed by councillor President.
Burris is good for a ribbon, just in pieces.
Talking about council, that's enough.
Then we've got D, there's a lot in D, but D is a recommendation that decision of plot splitting is made by F&GP following recommendations from the two nominated allotment councillors and the allotments officer, and we should follow a general policy moving towards quarter plots where possible. This is for us to get down our waiting list, which is currently 6+ years to get from what was a waiting list to being offered a plot. All plots have a standard size irrespective of price, and plot A, 8A to be considered for splitting as soon as it's available. Now, I thought Steve might have put his hand up by now, because the eagle-eyed amongst you will notice that's slightly different to the draft minutes of F&GP.
No, I wasn't going to say that, Chair. I was going to put my hand up, because if we're moving to quarter plots and keeping the price irrespective of size, that seems to be a subject to challenge by most of the people who lease plots from us. And would a quarter plot actually have a take-up, given the fact that it's fairly small? You know, is there an appetite for quarter plots amongst the proletariat?
It's big enough.
We as the F&GP believe that is the case.
Oh, okay. Well, do you think the council can get away with doubling the price?
It's not a matter of that, sorry, George, it's not a matter of that, it's a matter of that, that's a plot, right? And the company pay the money for that plot, right? If they don't want it, or they don't, you know, next list.
Yeah, just on the, all paying the same price, if we're, I don't know the price, £50 for a quarter plot, but somebody still has a huge plot, might some of the quarter plot owners say, well, why should I be paying the same as him? It should be paying twice as much. I think you've got to maybe look at the pricing structure as a full plot, half plot, quarter plot, and allocate those accordingly.
We've
We've
already
already given 12 months notice to all tenants that the plots will be all the same price from 2025.
So a full plot and a quarter plot will be the same price.
Yes,
until the full plot becomes vacant, when it will be.
And then it gets,
it becomes it don't become a quarter plot, it becomes a plot.
Small.
Becomes a smaller plot, yeah.
Yeah, and I view this as the same as if someone bought a house in the 1970s and they paid £80,000 for it, it's now worth £800,000. It's just one of those things, unfortunately. And yeah, when those, it does seem unfair, and if I was on the waiting list, it depends on where I am as to whether I find it unfair. I'd either be glad that I've got an allotment and some outside space.
Which is more manageable, of course.
Which is more manageable.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
I would certainly prefer that because I'm rubbish at this sort of stuff. But I can appreciate that some people find it grossly unfair, but we have got a waiting list of 70 plus, and there's a utilitarian principle, the greatest good for the greatest number. That's the greatest good for the greatest number.
That's right.
Yeah, on our waiting list, which is long and takes many years and a lot more than 6 in certain circumstances to even get off on a plot, I am sort of wondering, do we only offer plots to BD 16 Bingley Town Council residents?
Yes.
Or I'm not. I am not one of the allotment gurus.
No. It was agreed when Bingley Town Council started that it would, in fact, anybody who didn't come in our council zone wasn't eligible.
That's fine.
David, putting Bingley first is the principle.
so how much would this half a plot A be?
Pardon?
How many metres by how many metres? How
I
big?
couldn't tell you how many metres it is. I think it's
Hang on.
They're all different sizes at this moment in time.
How many changing places, like the size of changing, would it be the size of the changing places facility?
I'll tell you what it is. If you want to go have a look, I'll take you. How's that?
Yeah.
They're all different sizes.
The problem is every plot is a different size.
Yeah.
Sorry?
60 metres, 70 metres. How big is a plot? Full plot 250 square metres, half plot 125, quarter plot 600.
Those figures, to be,
That's the standard.
with respect, that is totally irrelevant to better allotments.
Okay, this room here, would this be the size of a plot, one of the full plots that somebody might have had for years?
Could be.
Could be.
Could be.
Might be. But it could be 4 for.
But it could be less.
Our current allotment policy states that the minimum size of an allotment would be 50 square metres, and they're all, once we finish, will be more than that.
It's difficult to answer your question because some of the full allotments are different sizes to the next full allotment. So if you split a different full one into two, obviously it creates a different size.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to avoid what you're asking, but that's the answer.
That's, okay.
Chair, this has been recommended by the F&GP.
Second.
Can it be put to the meeting?
Just because the council was
I just think the way the agenda is put in that way as a recommendation with F&GP is a complicated motion with 7 action points within it, and you know I find it difficult to agree with all of them, and therefore I find myself in a quandary whether I should vote against it or vote for it or abstain because I don't agree with half of it. So yeah, it's a personal thing, isn't it? But I'm flagging it that you know maybe
we should split it up and make it
we'll have A, B, C, D, and E and F within that.
I'm wondering whether everything that F&GP decides needs to actually come here.
I'm wondering that too. Yeah.
Can I propose it then?
Yeah. Proposed by councillor Lewis, all in favour?
With reluctance.
Against? One abstention. Okay, and E, which sort of follows on, and is sort of slightly split out, so it doesn't make much sense by itself. I don't make recommendation that F&G committee assess each plot individually on its own merits. Proposed by Councillor Fenton.
Yes.
So what does that mean?
Point of order? Yeah.
What does that mean? It means because all the plots
Yeah,
are...
what does it mean? Because they've all been assessed, aren't
All the plots are slightly different, so
That's
you need to look at each one and...
they? So we're not going to call the plots, we're going
We
to call
are.
the plots depending upon how big
So
the
does that mean
plot is.
some plots, it might be some will split them in half, some thirds, some quarters? Is that what that means?
No, it isn't ridiculous. It is ridiculous. This has to be taken into consideration because you've got various anomalies to this. If they're all out they're all the same size, shape and everything, you can split them easily. Some of these are odd shapes, they're right under the trees, which, you know, we've got all this issue about shading, etc, etc. So it was agreed in F&GP to just look, as plots came available, to assess them individually and decide what action we're going to take, and then recommend to the F&GP what the councillors who was responsible and the allotment officer to recommend what the next action was.
Yeah, it doesn't make quite as much sense just out on its own, but effectively to follow it on, it's quarter plot size, but each one will be judged on the basis that John said, terrain, and if there's, you can't split one that's maybe 100 metres square, you can't make that same as if then you've got just a waste. So as a general principle, it's 60 to 70 metres square. But then E is saying, but we can use discretion. I think is that better?
Some of it's in shaded areas and some of it can't be used.
Yeah.
Some of it's down by a wall and there's certain issues with it.
Yeah.
So you can't, it's not as if they're all perfect now, where we can just put lines through them. Each one is separate and has its own issue, so I propose it.
Second it.
They're all voting for it.
Yeah, right over.
All in favour?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Moving swiftly on to 22, 23, 1, 2, 3, planning committee.
Very brief, Chair. Just to note that 12, we did look at the meeting at 12 applications that that had been decided on. We refused one and council granted it, and then we granted one and then we refused one. So I think we're doing a pretty good job. That's like 10 out of 12. At one point, the other point is that we removed from the agenda about the updates on Green Hill, Middle Fields and Air Valley, because we never hear anything about them. So unless somebody comes forward with anything, we removed that from the agenda, and our meeting is next Tuesday. Which will be even shorter meeting.
I'd like to ask the planning committee to explain to me what the two planning applications to do with Crossley Wood meant. I didn't understand anything about that.
One was the tree protection.
So does that mean that they're going to protect, is that to
There's
protect
some-
some elements? Because they're going to build on that, won't they?
There are some trees coming out and there is new planting. The item that was considered was the actual method of protecting the roots and the groups of trees that will remain on site. So that is a big Harris fence with lots of support, which will either go around individual trees or groups of trees to prevent storage of materials, etc. But there are a significant number of trees coming out, which I have planning permission for, and there is significant new planting on site within more simple areas.
I didn't understand what that meant about protections.
The second bit was, it said highways wall.
I see, yeah.
It actually was the methodology that the contractors will use for the whole site.
Right.
So it is a comprehensive document, health and safety, on-site vehicle management, off-site vehicle management, you name it. But with all big construction things, they have to have that in place. And in theory, Bradford Council should make them
Do that.
tour the line.
Do that, yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
There's me done.
Did you have anything about, I don't know if your job had anything about GDPR?
No, we haven't. John, you were at the parish liaison meeting when it was the same on GP.
I was at the liaison meeting for 30 minutes because it was prior to F&GP. All I heard mainly was the beginning of the warm spaces, and then I had to leave the meeting.
I've asked Nicola to have a word with Pete
Alison.
at Wilson, if he's got an update for us.
The general issue of Bradford Council now saying because of GDPR that they can't release the details of comments on planning applications. Bradford Council don't seem likely to change on that because councillors, district councils as well, are having problems getting information which is important and to represent people. You like to hear what other people are saying. So it is a problem which has been raised in a number of forums.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Harold. So we'll move on to 22-23, 124, traffic consultation. So this is a consultation that's come to us from Bradford for traffic calming measures down Park Road. It's obviously got 3 elements to it. Does anybody have anything, comments, things they wish to say?
A lot to say about this. First one, the zebra crossing. Don't have a view about that, but one of my fellow councillors has told me that the buses are pretty fed up with speed bumps. This is effectively a speed bump on Park Road. Second one, the 2 and 3 I definitely have views about. Shall I present it? Wait, right, okay. The real difficulty, I think, on Park Road, apart from the speeding issue, which these 2 roundabouts are designed to correct, is actually coming out of Villa Road and turning right to go up the hill. I don't know what Councillor Fenton thinks about this, but you take your life
Just
Oh,
go the other way.
Does it?
Just go the other way.
You take your life in your hands.
No, you don't. Just go the other way.
Yeah, you take your life in your hands, turning right on Park Road. Because it's not the traffic coming down the hill. When the hedge is cut, you can see fairly clearly, and the traffic coming up in Lady Lane is an indicator. If it's stopped, there's obviously something coming down the hill. It's traffic coming up the hill, and actually the roundabout proposed at the end of Priesthood Lane and Beck Lane. It's over 200 metres away. I haven't measured it, but it could even be more than that. And people can develop quite a pace going up that hill. And the visibility at 30 miles an hour, that exit is safe because the braking distance is sufficient. This we've investigated. But at higher speeds than that, it is no longer safe. I've got 4 residents here who are saying that they would prefer that there was a roundabout at the end of Villa Road.
Councillor Kerr, what do you think?
Presumably, all of these traffic calming measures are introduced. The likelihood is more cars will be travelling at 30 miles an hour past Villa Road anyway, even in its proposed configuration, I would have thought. I'm presuming that the mini roundabout being located at Lady Lane rather than Villa Road is because there's just more space to implement one.
There's more traffic.
And there'll be more traffic. I appreciate what you're saying, though, Councillor Barton, that the Villa Road exit isn't pleasant, but I would imagine that this would help that because it would reduce speed.
My opinions on it, the zebra crossing becoming a raised speed table type, I'm more in favour of than not. I think it will encourage traffic to slow down at that area where, because when it comes out into Charles Street sometimes, whether you're turning left or right, it can be a bit worrying about traffic going fast there. And also because you're going into the town, it feels like it helps to get people to slow down. Mini roundabout, Priestford Lane, Beck Lane, I'm not so sure about. The refuge islands I agree with. But I think the issue for me is that because they're all on a hill, and I don't know if that actually matters, but when you look at the plans, they look like a great idea, and it looks like somebody has looked at the plans on the roads of Bingley and just not really thought about the sort of the elevation. I think people who aren't familiar with the area, even if you do have a sign saying mini roundabout ahead, they might not see the mini roundabout if they're coming up a hill. I don't think it's necessary in the slightest at the junction at Lady Lane. As somebody who used to live around that area and use that junction most days, I never had an issue using that junction. And sometimes you do need to pick up a bit of speed going up that hill, obviously no more than 30 miles an hour. So the mini roundabout, Priestford and Beck Lane, perhaps, the zebra crossing, yes, the one on Lady Lane, no. Come in.
Yes, I lived up pretty close to this area for 5 years. And this suggestion seems eminently sensible. That's all I want to say. That it's something we needed, and that's what we needed.
Councillor Heseltine.
Thank you. Just on Dale's comment about Villa Road, there is nothing to stop us asking that for council to look again at additional measures. When they put the little island in a little bit further up, there are constraints with the width of the road and sightlines and what they can actually put there. Well, I would suggest that maybe in our feedback comments that Villa Road still presents a problem due to sightlines, particularly to the left.
The issue for me is on number 3, the mini roundabout at Lady Lane. From a road safety point of view, I live up at Lady Lane myself, so what that means to me is I would have priority over someone speeding down Park Road, and I would be expected under roundabout terms just to pull out, and I'd get sideswiped because people are coming down the hill there against gravity and having to pull up sharply. So I think perhaps, whilst it speeds the exit from Lady Lane, I can see a hell of a lot of more accidents on that junction now.
As I said, I think it looks like a nice idea on the plan.
Yeah, it does.
But
Sounds like an
without
idea.
knowing about the elevation, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, living on a roundabout, mini that it is.
You do 10.
I think there is an issue with many mini roundabouts, and that the dominant traffic flow tends to ignore the rights and way of others on the roundabout, and maybe we need to feed that back into officers and ask them to try and address that. They might be able to do it by chicaning the entrance into the roundabout from the dominant force, rather than it just being straight, it might be kinked. Well, I think it's something worthwhile them having a look at to try and reduce the over-enthusiasm of the dominant flow of traffic. And I can see, I can see day in, day out, and people coming off on the road just do not stop. Do not stop. You're turning right from Park Road if you're coming out of Heights Lane, if you're coming up Body Road, they will not stop.
Well, we had the same problem I got in the mini roundabout. and is waiting for a major accident to happen.
Absolutely.
So if I were to try and summarise that as our feedback for Bradford, would it be the mini roundabout at Lake Lone we are concerned about? We suggest.
Could we put both roundabouts?
Sorry?
Could we put both roundabouts? Because it's going to be the same issue.
Well, we'll come on to that. I think this one especially, given the steepness of the hill, anything that can be done to slow the dominant traffic before it gets there needs to be taken into consideration. Is that right? So we're dubious about that one, I think, generally. I think the one at Priesthorpe and Beck Lane, is it the same?
Again, it's on
There's still a dominant traffic flow up and down Park Road. So I would imagine downhill Park Road will carry on going downhill unless you throttle them or in just a straight attack at it.
Okay, so both of them, the
Yep.
dominant traffic needs to be.
And I think it's all mini roundabouts.
Yeah,
And I will declare an interest because I live on the people keep asking me for CCTV of the accident.
But we will say that it's dominant and it's the steepness of the road that we think is one of the contributing factors. And then in terms of the rain table, zebra crossing with the different views, I think.
That probably is helpful because actually I walk up and down that road regularly, crossing Priesthorpe Lane. Take my life in my hand twice there actually in 5 years. And crossing, is it Charles Street or is it Mornington? I can't remember which it is, way around it is. Charles Street. Do you not have any visibility of traffic coming down the hill whatsoever? Not at all. You see it, the cars reflected in the cars parked.
You just have to listen out, don't you?
Pardon?
You just have to sort of listen out for the
Yeah.
traffic coming down. If it's a Tesla.
So I think then we're saying we're in favour of the road zebra crossing. Yeah. Have I missed anything?
Villa Road.
Sorry?
Yes, Villa Road. Sight lines on Villa Road.
Thank you, then. We would like sight lines of Villa Road to be reconsidered.
Do we need to then vote on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seconded.
All right, all in favour?
That's well been.
Okay, so moving on to 22-23 community events. To consider the following local events and to receive updates and reactions. So the first one is Remembrance Day, which is Sunday the 13th of November. So I think we're looking for people who think they're going to go and to approve the cost of the wreath for us to raise it to the town council. I expect the maximum to raise it. Okay, Pope, second is for the
Is this for the wreath?
For the wreath, yeah. I mean, if people want to say if they're going to go, I'm sure lots of people will go and whatever. Okay. Then, I'm not entirely sure what the next one is. B, Christmas in Bingley, which we're having in November 22.
It's only a month away.
Well, the Christmas lights switch on.
I'm assuming it's light switch on, and of course now that Amplitude have pulled out, it's going to be reasonably straightforward. I think now we need to have maybe have another updated meeting with the chamber. Chamber chairman did come to the last one, and as I say, it'd be fairly straightforward, just to give us an update where we are. I don't know what you think, Ian.
Yeah, shall I contact Michelle?
Yeah, I would think so, maybe, yeah.
Can we understand what happened with the World Cup thing? Because I thought that was a tremendous idea. It was a great way to get more people into central Bingley. I think that we just at a loss as to why we were on their radar and then 2 weeks later we weren't.
I would imagine the operator decided that the expense maybe didn't outweigh the potential return due to England, shall we say, not
So you're
lacklustre
saying,
performance.
so you're saying they saw us play against Italy, you just went no?
It could be that, but basically, in fact, I just threw it away last night. They gave Mark and I a printout with all the marquees on what they're going to look like, where they were, etc., and it must be 6 months ago, and yet a month ago they hadn't even applied to Bradford Council for permission. So, in theory, it were an idea, but there was quite a bit of what's the word? Opposition against it, you know, from local government people. But I think it's just a commercial decision at the end of the day. It hasn't been thought out.
Chair, is this related to Christmas and Bingley?
Well, it's a bit of a digression, but we'll come back. I think it effectively is a better opportunity for the local pubs.
Yeah, I think also the World Cup in Qatar might not be as popular as they would hope as well.
But in terms of Christmas and Bingley, then we're just going to set up another meeting with the chambers.
Just so that everybody knows what we're doing, really.
Okay. So, moving on then, 22, 23.
I was just going to say, subject to if that's what the rest of the, I mean, it's a chamber-based thing, but we're partners, aren't we?
22, 23 and 26, green and clean. Consider any updates on green and clean?
Any updates?
Anything else?
Yes, green and clean. So, just about a week ago, I was at Carlton Nurseries and he said he'd started taking some of the baskets down, but he's away for a fortnight and he'll take the rest of the baskets down that he's contracted to do when he returns. We had a lit pick and it was a good decision to do it at Britannia Bridge because we didn't have a big number of pickers, but we did have a lot of rubbish that we collected from where Canal and River Trust and Bradford Council, I don't know what they call the team that they formed, working unit that covers all the 5 constituent wards. They've done a clearance around the canal bank. Another issue that came up that I've looked into, and that is we tend to ask our lit pickers to separate the recyclables from the litter. I was advised that this was a waste of time, so I went and I've spoken to Gary Priestland, who's the cleansing at Keighley, and it sort of is a waste of time. I was told it goes to Keighley, then it goes into landfill. That is not true. The situation is that it goes from the street cleansing, Parks Department, street cleansing, I think they call it. They take it in their box wagons to Keighley, they tip it, and then Keighley send it to a contractor. Bradford Council send the rubbish, the bags of rubbish to a contractor who shreds the bags and takes out as much recyclables as we can, and then it's the rest of it is sent. I'm fairly confident it's sent for incineration.
Thermal processing.
Pardon?
Thermal processing.
Yes, thermal processing. Yes. So that's what's happening. So I'll probably be asking my the next one just to use one set back basically, because it seems straight, because some of this came out of when there was some controversy about recycling at Prince of Wales Park, because they wanted to separate them, and that's the reason. So they're all going to go. I have Eve suggested at a meeting that perhaps we're looking to doing a little big round Cardigan house, which is in community's property. I went and wrecked it, and it looked pretty good to me, but I've still decided that that's where we do it, because while you're all busy lip picking, I can go clear that flower bed opposite on that banking. So that's where it is on the date.
22nd.
22nd of this month. I think that's all for now. Yeah, I thought we would bring the claim forward, yeah.
So I suppose just off the back of that, to reiterate to everybody, obviously they've got nominations for areas.
Oh yes, absolutely, yeah.
Please send them
Yeah,
through.
oh, that's the last thing. We already have it penciled in to do a little pick. It's mainly a leaf clearance prior to an early morning clearance prior to the amendment service, which we've done for the last couple of years.
Okay, thanks.
Chair, actually there were only 2 councillors at the last year to pick.
Yeah,
Can we encourage councillors to
We're not-
take a little bit?
we're all unpaid volunteers.
I would encourage councillors to take little picks, including
Thank
myself, who never manages to make it.
Thank you.
I'm sure everyone will be welcome. So moving on then, 22-23, 127 5 Rise Way markings, received a progress update on the 5 Rise Way marking project. I've been on holiday, so and to some extent I want us to see what the rate is coming in December from the Bradford City Culture bid days, because as I've said in the past, I would like to snap up some of the early money to get us some nicer waymarkers in the pavement if we can possibly do so, given that we didn't see the feature very high in the bid. 22, 23 and 28, Graham Park 2023.
Yeah, just seeing if we have the appetite for booking the events for next year. It's going to go up in money. It's not gone up in money in price per session for a few years, and they obviously have more cost. They have to pay people a bit more, need to replace equipment, so it's going to go up to £700 per session. But it was really popular this year, really popular, and especially with cost of living people wanting something free to do. Actually, ironically, there was less turnout on the really, really hot days because people were staying inside, sheltering from the shade. But other than that, very popular, very well used. I think we should put them on again. People love them. The only thing is whether to organise portaloos this year. We tried to do them. There was a mix-up with dates. Then they pulled out, probably because they had a better offer. But we went with the cheaper option, didn't we? No, but initially we booked service, didn't we?
Yeah.
And when we should have gone with the slightly more expensive option of convenience hire, because they came through for us a few years ago, and I think they were quite.
They did right into the kids then, so we've got cancellations.
But if we booked them early, if we booked them initially,
I think I preempted Councillor Wilmington. I'm sure it's going to come back with we should have a risk and resource for this, which we probably should in due course. But I think this is a temperature taking.
On a positive note, I didn't spend a lot of time at any of these events, but I went to them all. What I did find was there were a lot of, I think it's a really good thing from, I don't like the use community, because I think all this community stuff's a myth. It's community stuff is a very small group of people that actually do things, and the rest of the people there benefit from them. But that's a bit of an aside. A lot of young groups, like groups of young women with kids and stuff like that, in groups, and I thought it was a really good thing. Personally, after this year, I don't know whether there is any need to have portaloos.
We didn't have any complaints.
Well, there you go.
The one I went to, I spoke to the man from Bradford who was organising it, and he said we were the only place that provided put onto the.
That's what I'm thinking.
They said nowhere else did, so I would say going forward.
Yeah.
Just,
Most places, I suppose, there is a loo nearby. So like Bingley, the toilets. Pottingley, there's the centre, isn't there?
Yeah.
Sometimes the church is open at arm's length.
Well, I think if it's just young kids, then
Yeah, they don't really care.
they're not that.
And they're meant
Yeah.
to be for the people that are local, aren't they? So
Yeah.
during cottage, they go to the one in cottage.
Yeah.
Just go home.
But that is another interesting point. I did talk to one or two people, and several people use more. People went to more than one. So yeah, they're all been residents, but yeah.
Well, some people come from further afield.
So I just
From Wales and that.
Yeah.
But to get the dates booked in, when do we need to confirm that?
I mean, as soon as possible, but we usually get first refusal.
I think we'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah, let's do it tomorrow. We can get the Fridays, that's the best day anyway. Yeah.
Well, I'll second the proposal.
What is the proposal? Yes.
We
Do
said
It's not pay 7
without what?
6 days.
The proposal is we put on playing the park again next year, these 6 dates without Portaloos.
Yes.
yeah.
22, 23, 129 for town parks report. You see the town parks report?
Yeah.
Lovely report.
You got anything you want to add to it? No? You see?
Okay.
22, 23, 130 correspondence, to note the correspondence received and to agree the actions necessary. So emails from resident
This was from, it was from about 5 weeks ago. It was before it was going out the first time. But I keep getting an email from the same person wanting to know what's happening with the preschool plans. So I'm just giving them an update as we get an update, really.
This is with regards to the money.
Yes. So a trust has been set up.
That's all we
And
have.
I've separately asked what the timetable is now for some sort of disbursement of some award scheme, so we'll see.
I think Darren not been invited to anything.
We still had in our session in the pub a time capsule which we should give this Councillor Ross and myself to deal with actually. So that requires action.
Time capsule for...
There was a
It
time
came out of the old building.
Is that the
when
one
the
that
building
someone
was
dropped?
demolished. To open it with Presthorpe Primary School.
All right.
But they
So it's something we could address separate to Bradford County.
Oh,
I'll tell you that.
Noted. Then the email from Councillor Sullivan, I think we were on around warm spaces. You want to talk a little bit about warm spaces?
Bradford Council are opening up a grant scheme to encourage organisations, community organisations, to provide warm spaces and drop-ins, could be coffee mornings and things. They're giving grants of £500 or £1,000 depending on what additionality the various community groups could do. And this is, the basic position is that because of high fuel bills, there's an expectation, at least in some places across the district, and there will be some fairly vulnerable people, older people perhaps, who struggle with paying their energy bills, and these will be some places they can go and have at least an hour or two in some sort of warm place. So the grants are being, grant schemes about to be opened, working with the CABAD. They're going to do a sort of directory of these places across the district, and and there's going to produce all sorts of other advice on people managing their costs and so on and so forth. They're going to, part of the thing is to make sure people know about the scheme, the voluntary group, so that they could consider whether there's something they could do. And I know, for example, that the churches, some of the churches in Bingley are thinking about what they could do. Of course, no one quite knows what the demand will be in Bingley compared to perhaps some other places. But I think that as soon as the Bradford Council have got an application form and further details, they will be coming amongst other things to the town and parish councils to ask them to use their communication methods to get the information out there.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add is that what they've said is the application process, the form will be available some point next week. Community groups will have 2 weeks to apply, that's all they're looking at. I'm assuming that their pot of money will go from that. So any community groups that think they might want to apply.
This is basically using money that the council have got from the Department of Work and Pensions.
What else can we do as a council to support this? Because this is, it's a really good email to be fair from Councillor Sullivan, but it's heartbreaking that we need it. But is there anything?
I suppose what he's asking is, he's asking of the town council, will you join in the water spaces project? So sorry, and would you give permission from your individual and organisation details to be placed on the new response database? So
is that effectively the proposition?
That's what he's at. Well, that's what he's asking in this email.
I think that's what his email is. The broader context, though, I think, as Jeff has said, is that the organisation is going to put together a directory where all these places are, and dates and times, so that people can know and can find out somewhere they can go in their local area. I think for us as a town council, we're not really in a position to become a warm space, because the office, the hub is an office, and it's a working office when people are there.
I should just explain further that Bradford Council themselves, some of their buildings, public libraries and so on and so forth, they will be trying to use some of those facilities where to attract members of the public who've got these sort of issues, and they might think about laying on extra provision in some of those places as well.
I'm just wondering what the, I don't want to say purpose of the warm space. I know what the purpose of the warm space is, but what can it be actually used for? So, for example, if a warm space was open during the day and someone wanted to take their laptop down to the warm space and do some work, say if this was a warm space, would it be perfectly acceptable for them to bring their laptop down, their packed lunch, and sit up and do their work here rather than have their heating on at home? Is that the idea of a warm space? Or are you supposed to sit there and we play the violin?
I think the assumption would be that community organisations who may already have coffee mornings, knit and natter events, community luncheons and things, I think they see more of those that would be encouraged or extended, perhaps organisations, community organisations putting on things on days they wouldn't ordinarily do something. With the view to getting people to come. There's also a stigma issue. It's difficult for people to go into places which have a big banner in the front saying, come in here, it's warm. I think it's more, if there's some sort of event already on, people might go. And the grant monies really could help organisations themselves pay the extra heating costs for opening longer, pay for food and drink or other, support and
so it doesn't have to just be for heating, it can be for refreshments, for example.
Yeah.
I think it depends what the community groups want to offer, and somewhere like the library, I would say, is being much more like, I can sit down and drop in with my laptop.
In terms of support, as you rightly say, we can't exactly just offer up the hub. But support's open-ended. Could we interpret this as, can we support it in terms of signposting out on our social media, for example?
I think that is our intention, certainly in the short term, that we would signpost. It was also, because I know I've said this to a few people, whether we do something not offer a warm space, but what can we do as a council also, as well as Brentford, to help community groups offer this? And it might be that that's just, we look at our grant scheme and ensure that it's available for this sort of use. We might have some restrictions in there at the moment, we might just need to review it and make sure we can. But we could look favourably on grants from community groups that come forward to do that, so we could help that way. I mean, that's what I think we could do, signposting and possibly something there. I'm not sure we've got the capability or the capacity to do much else.
Yeah, well, the interchange of emails between myself and Councillor Fenton when this came on the agenda is germane to this conversation, because I interpreted that as Councillor Sullivan was indeed asking us to deploy resources in a more direct fashion, which is why I was saying, because that then brings into the working time directive for the clerks, who's going to say, oh, we need the volunteers, our energy budget, which is already stretched, goes up. You know, it is an office. But you're quite right in terms of looking at the minutiae of our processes. But having said that, we always support any grant scheme from Bradford on our social media. We absolutely push it out as soon as we know. But I mean, what more is it?
I think it's just more of the same.
Yeah.
Really, we push it out. We need to push it out as soon as the grants are available. Because, like I say, as far as my understanding is, we're talking about a short window for people to get in a grant application to Bradford so that they can start offering the service. So, yes, make that, publicise that, but then help with just signposting to where these warm spaces are and what's going on. So,
are we obliged to only share Bradford council posts, or can we share, I don't know, the Brown Cow, they're having a warm space sort of period on a morning before they open? Are we able to directly repost what they do?
I can't. Well, that would be for us to decide.
Okay, so
I can't see why we wouldn't, unless we thought we were favouring one establishment above others.
So
Can I just, sorry.
No, go on, I was going to...
No, I'm just going to add what Councillor Winard said, because I just know a bit more about the initiative that Cabad are doing with the Bradford Council. They're doing a booklet, which is a really useful booklet. I've seen a bit of the inside. It hasn't been actually produced. It's going to be coming out on the 10th. And that's got a lot of useful information, especially for cost of living in terms of the heating and other kind of schemes and initiatives around the Bradford district area. And I think that'd be a really useful tool for Building Town Council if we can get access of that information booklet, which we can give out.
Yeah.
Would be really useful.
So can I propose that we as the Town Council repost, retweet, whatever, or endorse both Bradford Council and any private enterprise that is trying to provide a warm space this winter? Can I propose that?
I would second that. Too late.
Well, we'll know what's that.
So moving on to C, I think we just note C, we've had a lot of correspondence from YMCA. D, I think we touched on this anyway, amplitude, as far as we know, it's a commercial decision, so pulled out of the work couple of things. E, we've all seen the email from the Jerwood Action Group around concerns around Jerwood and Jeff's intervention to get some response. I don't know if people know if any of the work is actually being undertaken and started.
No, but it's helpful in the way that Brian Dobson in the area office, who's been off for some time, is back, and he, in addition to some work was already planned, he said he was going to get some costings for some further work on to improve Jerwood Park, so I think that's positive.
And just want to say that I'm disappointed with this email accusing Bingley Town Council of not supporting Jerwood Action Group. Bingley Town Council has supported Jerwood Action Group in the offer of plants and bulbs, and also in the past we have sponsored community events in Jerwood, so I'm disappointed that Body Spirit should write that and say that we will let him down.
Thank you, John. Then an email from the representative of BCB, yeah, with their proposal for a local council radio show. People read it, does anybody have any thoughts about
I've not seen this email.
Have you not?
No.
Book me in.
It's essentially one guy who wants to do interviews with local councils, discuss what they do, how they work.
To have a bit of like a question time.
Yeah. What their projects are, what they're undertaking, and then
Steve's volunteered.
effectively broadcast it and podcast it.
Councillor Curdow.
Should we just leave it up to individual councillors to decide?
Oh,
surely the
surely the council has to reply and say that it's just to ask whether we'd be interested
So
or
he's
not.
asking whether we'd be interested. I mean, for me, it's a question of, is this a full council thing, or should we push it to EMAC, which is possibly where it should sit, or are we in principle happy that we could take part in this? If in principle we're...
I suppose it's here now.
Yeah. Are we
Is it just up to an individual person?
I don't think so, because it was asking for councillors and the clerk. So I think it's...
I think the chair, a councillor and the clerk.
I think we could agree in principle, but obviously exactly what happens until the journalist makes a contact with me know what
It is, but I think we can agree in principle whether we think the council should be involved. So if I propose in principle that council are involved, what is second?
I second in principle.
Let's find out the details here.
Okay, and then G, an email from a resident with concerns over parking on grass verges near Beckford School.
Chair, this is above our pay grade, and I think this is about the district council matter.
I'll second
We
that.
should refer it to.
And good luck with it, because you never, ever, no matter what policing you put on, it's going to last a fortnight, and then it's going to just do, they're just going to do it again.
Is this to do with school pickup?
Yeah, school pick up and drop off, it's a nightmare at all schools.
It's always a nightmare.
Around schools,
Noted effectively.
It's up to parents to sort of,
Okay,
you know, just take action themselves. Be the decent people, be the decent person.
Councillor,
Yeah, sorry.
We've had some more correspondence, and I want to bring it up. Cool. The person who's been shown lot 8.
we'll take that back to F&G there.
Are we not discussing it tonight?
I don't think we can discuss correspondence that half of the councillors won't have seen as it's been flying.
Fine, but I'm incensed about it, that's all.
Okay.
It's a good word, isn't it?
Chair, any further correspondence is not on this agenda, so
Which is wrong, because it's
in
not.
my view.
Yes. And it's not fair on councillors to have to deal with stuff with no relevance nor.
Fair enough.
Okay, 22, 23, 131 promotional items. Consider any promotional items and council wishes to publicise from this meeting.
The grant application process for the ward spaces.
Since
Sid?
Without a doubt.
community gift card.
I think all of it should go.
Play in the park.
Draw residents' attention to potential traffic calming measures on Park Road.
All nutcase as well. All of them. Maybe I can say something.
I thought you were going to say community gift card.
Changing places, anticipate opening date.
Remembrance Day, Christmas.
There is no climate emergency.
Allotments. Get your name down for an allotment.
On the agenda.
Yeah, basically.
of doing, is it artisan or artisanal?
Well, it's R&M Artisan.
Is it artisan, not artisan? Yeah, it's artisan.
Artisan. Being tasked by
You're the
the
hero.
council to,
What place is it?
I don't think we can.
to put additional stalls on.
It's not on our agenda.
And I suppose the message we could put there, because it's promoting markets in Bingley, use it or lose it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't
They're
think,
not our markets.
it's not
Don't
our
matter, we
market,
can still promote.
and it's not on our agenda,
It's not.
so we can't.
This
put
is
it on.
this is to publicise.
Promotional items.
Discuss at this meeting.
Well, we discussed that.
We have 3 minutes, Chair.
We don't. So have we got enough promotional items then? Yeah. All right, 22, 23, I think that's the date of next meeting, so it is fairly soon after this one. Tuesday the 25th of October. No, we're not in this one. 22, 23, 133, exclusion for